my cloud. It's my cloud. Own it. Own it. Own it.
VMworld 2011.
VMworld 2011. VMworld 2011. It's your cloud. Own it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maurizio Carli.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Last time. Good afternoon. Better? It's a bit difficult, but good. Welcome to Copenhagen. Welcome to VMworld 2011. The cloud is here. The cloud is changing the world of IT. The cloud is changing the world of business. The cloud is changing the world. And this is because of you, customers, partners, all our ecosystem. Again, thank you to be here. I'm sure we will have an amazing week. It is just a few weeks we had VMworld US in Las Vegas. We have 19,000 attendees. 19,000 people looking around for our technology, for how our technology can help to make the transformation. I was there for a couple of days, and I can tell you that it's amazing the passion that you have around our technology. And this week, we are here in Copenhagen for the 4th edition of VMworld Europe. We have here today 7,200 people. This is the largest IT event in Europe. Last year, we had around 6,000 people. We are more than 1,000 people in addition this year. Great. This is, to me, the best demonstration that virtualization and cloud are at the center of IT. And today, with us, we have also the key IT players that are embracing the cloud, and they decided to partner with us in the journey to the cloud. These are our diamond sponsors: Cisco, Dell, EMC, HP, NetApp. They contribute with significant resources to VMworld US, VMworld Europe, and several VMware regional forums. And our platinum sponsor. I would like to thank all our partners with the contribution they gave to help to make this event happening. Let's now move to the agenda of the week. I told you it's a very intense week. We start today, we will have a keynote from Dr. Stephen Herrod, our Chief Technology Officer. We will talk about our newest technologies and products, and will show us some demonstrations to see how it all works together. And I'm sure that it will be an exciting session. Steve, keynotes are always exciting. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp, we will have Raghu Raghuram, our Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cloud Infrastructure and Management, that will talk about the virtual data center. And finally, Thursday, we will welcoming our CEO, Paul Maritz, that will share with us his view on the new IT. And on Thursday too, we will have a customer panel. We will have 3 important customers of us on stage, hosted by Carl Eschenbach, our co-president of customer operations, talking about their journey to the cloud and how their organizations are having benefit out of the migration to the cloud. We will have on stage 3 executives from Ducati, Euronext, and SAP. As you know, VMworld is not just about business, it's also about having relationship with peers and also having some fun. Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the evening, we will have a famous VMworld party. The theme of this year is Altitude City. I don't say more, not to ruin the surprise. I just give you a few tips. There will be games, rides, casino gaming tables, and free live acts to get everyone excited. I'm sure it will be a great party as usual. Also, we have, after this session, after Steve's keynote, we will have a welcome reception in the solution exchange area. So I invite each of you to join to create some connection with other peers, to exchange experience, and to share best practices. I want now to spend a few minutes on the VMware user group. As you know, VMware has a great community, and the VMware user group is very instrumental to making alive this community, sharing best practices, and creating connection peer-to-peer. The VMware user group has now more than 65,000 members across the world. It's a very active user group. And I would like to take a few moments to thank you, the VMware user group board of directors and the VMware user group leaders across the world that are taking personal time out of their agenda to make it happen. I kindly ask the VMware user group leaders to stand up, please. Can stand up? Thank you. And I would like to give a round of applause. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, it's time to introduce where we will have VMworld next year. It's the second year in a row that we have in Copenhagen. And this morning I wake up very early to rehearse. And I was thinking what I can say to introduce, and I was looking out of the window. And the weather today is awful, while yesterday was beautiful. Yesterday was sunny, beautiful sun, and this morning was raining and windy. So I thought, you have it. And I thought the following: VMware is so much at the center of the cloud that even the weather wants to partner with us. So this is why we decided to go to a warmer place. Next year, destination is Barcelona. So we will have the event October 16 to 18. Please pencil your agenda. We need to establish a new record next year. Before handing over to Steve, we will watch a short video. We will hear from our engineers to what they're working on. Please, join me.
So the biggest problem we're looking at in performance management is actually quite simple in the sense that it's what exactly is a performance problem. If you look at any modern data center, you have millions of different stats coming in, all sorts of events. And how does an administrator know what's actually a problem, something that they should pay attention to, versus just noise and something that they don't want to care about?
So the problem that we're really passionate about solving at the moment is how we make kind of these enterprise applications really take advantage of all of the advances we've had in the infrastructure layer, so sort of the elastic provisioning and the hybrid cloud scenarios, etc. What does it mean to build an enterprise application that works well in a PaaS environment?
For customers right now, databases seem to be this thing that involves a lot of complexity, maybe some magic, maybe some thorny process issues, takes a long time to get them set up, backed up, performing properly. And turns out we can automate all of that on the vSphere platform and provide the best way to run databases on vSphere, plus make it a lot more automatic, quick, and easy than it's been before.
File sharing tools are not new. You've got the Z drives, you've got the FTP sites, and more recently, SharePoint. But there's an acute impedance mismatch problem between these legacy tools and the new generation of devices and apps. So Octopus aspires to be the fabric that links content to devices and to people.
One area that we are heavily focused on addressing multi-tenancy in the large data centers. Other area that we are spending a lot of time on is addressing the network services scalability, both in terms of the scale, performance, and efficiency.
What we have been doing over the years, it has been growing virtual machines from something that was a very small thing to something that's a very large and powerful thing today. And that trend is what I'm still excited about working on. We need to take virtual machines further forward so that essentially any workload can be put in a virtual machine and be expected to run exceptionally well out of the box with no need for tuning. It should just work, and it should just work well.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Herrod.
Hi, good afternoon. I love that quotation at the end of the engineering videos. It should just work, and it should just work well. And that's really what people expect from IT as a whole. And it's really a privilege to work with all the engineers, almost 4,000 now at VMware, that are working on all these problems. And this is really what we're always about and going to continue to work on. And I think everyone here is excited to be in the middle of this revolution and this big change to the way that IT works. And you know, I've just been walking around, and I have to say, I always realize how not normal we all are when I'm at these events. You have people getting up early to get in line for labs. I heard yesterday, before we had even officially started the event, we had 1,200 labs and 14,000 virtual machines that people had gone through. We have tweet-ups. We have the VMware group has some amazing stories, including, I know one of the VMware groups has their own custom beer that they have now. So we just have this passion and this thing that everyone is here and really focusing on. Now, the cloud is really changing everything about what we work on. It changes infrastructure. It changes the way that we write applications, and it absolutely changes how all of us are consuming applications. And it's really hard to do these keynotes because we're able to go after all different areas right now. So actually, one of my biggest challenges was narrowing in what to spend the next hour or so on. So we're really going to focus mostly on how do we optimize infrastructure, and how do we see end users, all of us, interacting with what we build here. I definitely encourage you to come to tomorrow's keynote. You're going to hear a lot more about how we're building that core data center product from Raghu. And then Thursday, from Paul, you're going to hear some really interesting thinking on how this is representative of a broad shift that's been going on in our industry over time, not to mention some very cool customers. So let's go ahead and get started here. I decided for this keynote, I'm going to do kind of a whiteboard and sticky note type of thing. I'm getting a little bored with the traditional templates and all, so I hope you enjoy it. So what I really want to start with is when we think about cloud computing, we need to first of all change the core tenets that we work with. And traditionally, we've really thought about two things, servers and desktops. But in reality, what we should be thinking of is not these servers and desktops, but actually about services, ultimately what people are consuming. And then not about machines or desktops, but actually we should be thinking about people. So it's about IT services and the people that consume them. And this is fundamentally a different way of thinking about IT than what we've grown up with. So what I'd like to do today is really start with the most important part of this at all, which is the people, and how we can provide great end-user services for all of them. So the transition to this world, which we're calling the post-PC era, is fairly obvious to a lot of us who are technical people here in the group here. We know it's characterized by a lot of new devices. I've seen more phones and tablets, in addition to Macs and laptops and other ways of computing than we've ever seen in the past. So we have to worry about, in this new era, new devices and all sorts of devices that people are using. And on that same note, we need to have universal access. So to whatever applications and data we're after, I should be able to get to it whether I'm at home, at work, in a cafe, or anywhere else. And then lastly, something clearly going on here is that we all have very high expectations. And a lot of this comes from the life that we have when we're not at work, where we can log in and buy an app right on the fly, where we can order movies and do whatever we want very quickly and without a lot of friction. So these are what we're all expecting, and it's actually not that profound. I don't know if you say duh in Europe, but we say that in the US. This is not too profound, but it's easy to talk about. It's much harder to deliver. And so I thought I'd start off the keynote by giving you an overview of all the products that we're building and how we plan to address the post-PC era. So let's take a quick view of that.
The way we work is always evolving, from the traditional desk to the personal computer. While the PC era made the individual more productive, the more we focused on documents, the less we connected. Now, the way we work is fundamentally evolving again. People are saying, let's collaborate in real time, from anywhere, on any device. And it's up to IT to help make that happen. They can now liberate our tools and files from the document-centric world of the PC era and bring them all together into a new world of mobility and collaboration. The way we see it, the technology we use in our personal world should define our business world as well, where it's no longer about provisioning machines, but about giving people the tools, data, and permissions they need to succeed, so they can get back to collaborating in real time in what is now the connected enterprise. All the while, IT is in control of the entire platform and has become a strategic service provider, empowering people to self-serve their own IT needs from any device, from anywhere, automatically. In the connected enterprise, people dictate the work style. They connect in real time. Entire teams are kept up to date with shared work streams. Tools are optimized and accessed across different devices, regardless of platform. And informed decisions are made and communicated as they happen. In the connected enterprise, we return to collaboration, the way we are designed to work. IT, well, they made it all possible, allowing us to engage like never before and embrace the new era of organizational productivity, leaving IT free to create, innovate, and yes, even take vacations.
Okay, so that's a bit of a grandiose vision for where we're headed, but what I'm excited to be here and talk about is that we are well on our way to enabling this. And this notion of the connected enterprise is really what our entire group is focused on in the end user space. Now, how should we talk about this? As I said at the start, it's currently a world where we're thinking about desktops and we're thinking about servers. But again, it's really about services and people. So let's step back and look at this. And in fact, it's interesting to even think about the word desktop. That used to be something that we actually used and it made sense as a metaphor. You're actually installing things to a place, and even the paradigm you're working with resembled that of the original desktops that you're working with. But it's ultimately about the applications and the data that are on that machine. And today, these applications and data are really often caught captive to a single device, when in actuality, we want to be able to get to them from wherever they happen to be. And as many of us know, it's also not about just Windows applications these days. I have a number of applications that I use every day that come from the data center that my IT department has written. And increasingly, I have the option of grabbing applications that are either software as a service, or they might be mobile applications, which we're seeing more and more of as we head forward. So the right way to think about this problem is how do we take all of these different applications and data and make them accessible? And we really see three ways to do this. First, you need to extract them from their silos. You need a way to forklift them off of the desktop and get them into a place where they're more easily brokered out to others. That's where the second part of the journey happens, which is really brokering access, making it easy and secure to provide applications and data to all of your users. And last but not least is the most important part. How do I, as a user, connect to these applications? And whatever device I happen to be on, how can I make sure that I have a great experience? So that's what we're working on here. And I want to take you through the steps that we see people going through in doing this. So the first step is really going into and making your Windows desktops much more manageable. This is the field of VDI, and this is what people have been working on. We're able to take it off the machine, put it into a virtual machine, and then get a lot of benefits of having it centrally administered while giving more mobility and access to all of your customers. What we also need to do is find a way to take these enterprise applications and our other applications out and put them all together in an app catalog. We're all very used to things like app stores in our personal life now. I should have the equivalent when I'm in IT. And then the last silo, and in fact, in many ways, the most important one, is our data. So many of us have C drives that we have stuff on that we'd like to get access to whenever we're somewhere else. It's very clear that I want access to my data, and I want it to be safe, but I want to have it following me and available wherever I go. So once you've simplified things by extracting them from today's silos, you really need to focus on this brokerage part. And I keep saying the word broker. This is really what the key factor is in the way that end-user computing will work in the future. I want to think of someone like a switchboard operator, and as I log in, it should get access to whatever I want and connect me very nicely to the device that I happen to be using at that point. And again, that's that last part. There are going to be a number of different devices that each of us are using, and all of them have different form factors and different risk profiles depending on when I'm accessing my applications. A smart broker will know about each of those and give you the best user experience and the best safety for the environment you're attaching to. And I want to call something out about this. The middle part of this, that universal service broker, this is really about thinking about not managing a machine, but managing a person. And as I go into the different demos today, you'll see what it means to really focus on a person rather than a device. Ultimately, that's what's going to help people help themselves as well, and that's what we're all after here. So I'm going to take you through a set of demos during the course of the day, and I'm going to use a company, a fictional company called Virtual Insurance. And it's a couple of thousand people company, and it's a medium-sized company like some that all of you are working with. And they have all the standard challenges of costs that they need to worry about. They're doing some outsourcing. They have people that are all over the world. And so what I'm going to do first is show you how we envision the world going forward from the IT administration staff. So this is the group that's in charge of providing services to claims adjusters and other people that work at this insurance company. So at this point, let's switch over to a quick demonstration of the new View 5. Now, we launched this relatively recently, and View 5 is designed to bring you Windows, wrap it up as a nice service, and allow you to access it over the network. Now, a couple things I want to show you. First of all, this is a very simple wizard that an IT administrator would work with. You're able to fill in a number of very simple parameters. One I thought I'd focus on here is the number. So here I want to be ready for 1,000 employees coming on board for virtual insurance, and I want this to handle the automatic creation of them. So here, after filling in 1,000, I'm going to click Finish. And now what's happening in the background is a substantial amount of automation, where it's going and creating all these desktops with the exact settings that I asked for. I'm able to look in here and notice that it's building up an inventory. Now, what's important is that it's actually using something called linked clones in this case, which is a way to really save on disk space and also to be very quick when you're provisioning all these different desktops. So I think if you click refresh right now, you'll see just in that amount of time, we're able to do about 8 of these desktops. And if we were to come back in about 55 minutes, we'd be up to 1,000 of desktops. So this is just one quick example of how an IT administrative staff can be ready, and they can pre-provision all these desktops so that when users come on board, they can quickly help themselves to what they need. Now, sometimes you want to have a full Windows desktop, and sometimes you just want the Windows applications without the heavy footprint that comes with it. Sometimes you also want to make users not all look the same. You might want to have some of them be able to customize their Windows desktop. So what we're also focusing on is something that we have called ThinApp. It's been very popular as a tool to virtualize the application itself and protect it from all the tentacles that tend to get into an operating system. Well, I'm really excited about a project we have called ThinApp Factory, which is designed to automatically create these ThinApp applications and make them very easy for people to select and put into their customized desktop. The next part that you want to do is when you have not only the Windows desktops and the Windows applications, but we also have these mobile applications and software as a service applications. I also want to show you Horizon App Manager, which is a product shipping today, that today it allows you to use single sign-on and get access to your software as a service applications that your IT department approves. But we're extending it by adding the capability to broker access to both those Windows ThinApp applications as well as mobile applications. And again, the key point here is we're assigning all of these options are to really focus on enabling people to get what they want and not thinking about the specific device that it should go to. So now I want to cut back over to the demo for a moment. And this time I'm showing you a view from, again, I'm the virtual insurance IT administrator. This is what I log into when I want to set up the App Store for my own employees. So you can hear I have a set of software as a service apps that I've already put in place and that can be accessed. Well, now I want to click up here on the ThinApp Factory tab. And this is, again, the tool that's automatically finding and creating Windows applications ready to be added. What's really cool here is I've actually gone and looked at file shares, and on here I'm going to find Windows setup files, ISO images, and other sources of Windows applications. Here it went out and searched for them, and these are all the candidates that it found. Again, these are the setup files. So I can actually go up now and say, I'd like to select all of these, and I'd like you to create a thin app around these. Make these much more manageable and easy to deploy. I can also go in and set a few of the default parameters, a few things you can set here, and click OK. And again, we're now going off and creating things in an automated way. We actually want to go through the process of wrapping these up in a nice bubble so that I can enable people to get access to them. So here it is in the process of converting them. What's really cool, too, it's not only converting them the first time that you see these new Windows application setup files, it can actually track the setup files, and when new versions come out, it can update it and make sure you get the latest version of that app, which is very, very nice for making sure you're using the right versions. So now we're going to make these available, and we're going to go forward and we're going to publish these. So let's select them and press Publish. And what this means is that I've now enabled all these thin apps to be candidates for offering up to my employees. So let's go back to the main screen. You can see now that in addition to the software as a service applications, we've also got these nice thin apps. In fact, we just added some. I think we added SocialCast right there. That's a software as a service example. What we're going to do now, though, is say, again, it's not about devices, it's about people. So let's click on the Users and Groups tabs. Now, as administrator for the virtual insurance company, these are the groups of people that I care about. This comes straight out of my Active Directory files. And I want to click here on Claims Adjusters, which is obviously the core of my business. And I see a set of people here. The point is that now as an IT administrator, I can enable these people to help themselves when they come back. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to actually add some applications. And one other cool thing that we enable you to do here, if you look under the different options here, you'll see that you can do automatic or user activated. This is actually something very useful for people who want to make it upfront easy for people to get their software as a service applications. But in this case, you don't actually get charged or even instantiate it until they actually log in for the first time. A real good way to make sure you're spending the right amount of money on apps. And there we have it. We've gone through and we've assigned some new applications to the claims adjusters. And I'll show you this in action in just a little bit on the other side. So that was a quick look at administrating Horizon. But as I said, data is one of the next big headaches. And it's incredibly inconvenient, especially in a world where I have so many different devices. So maybe I'll do a quick interactive poll of the audience. How many of you are using Dropbox today? Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now I'll ask you, how many of you are allowed to be using Dropbox from your IT staff? Exactly. Not so many people. So what we're really focused on is how can we get all the benefits of this really great, I love Dropbox by the way, a great file sync and share mechanism that really lets your data follow you. But how can we do it in a way that gives IT a fighting chance of enforcing what policies they have to have and ensuring that the data is secure? So Project Octopus is really about a form of Dropbox for the enterprise, and I'm extremely excited to be showing it here today. So let's cut back over to the demo for just a moment. And we're going to go over to the top here, which says Octopus Manager. Now again, this is the IT staff's view of the world. And what we want to be able to do is allow all users to have their own Dropbox. And again, this is going to sync out to all of their devices, make sure that things stay up to date. But what's important here is that I could just open it wide open, and that'd be fine, and a lot of people would want that. But I can also allow fine-grained policy to be set around this file sharing. So let's go ahead and click on one of our users here, Vittorio. And let's move forward and set up a policy for the Dropbox instantiation that he'll be using, the Octopus instantiation. So here we're going to set up a configuration. And again, this is where the core of the policy comes into play. There are a couple of interesting things I want to be able to do here. So one example is that I'd like to actually set an expiration date. Vittorio, who we're setting up here, is often out in the field, and he's going to be sharing documents. But just to be safe, every 21 days, let's make sure that we want to allow these files to stay out in the wild. One example we might want to do. The other thing I want to do is actually say these can be automatically shared and kept up to date with people outside the company. But I only want to have these 3 domains have access to some of these key files. So these are just a couple of examples of the settings that you might want to set that allow the great experience, but again, gives IT a little bit more control over what they're doing. And again, we'll be coming back to this a little bit later. One other important part about Project Octopus is something that we hear quite a bit. And you always hear us talking about the hybrid cloud. Well, we want to offer this both as an on-premise service, where you can offer it within your own IT department and have your data stay on-premise, as well as an off-premise setting, where you might want someone else to worry about the whole thing. And we think this choice over where the data resides is key to very broad adoption in the enterprise. So that's a very quick look at the IT side of this end-user computing space and where we see it going. You saw how we extract applications, we created a catalog for our users, and then we define policy at a person level, not at a device level. And ultimately, this is really about creating a well-managed service for desktops, applications, and data. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is give users freedom to access, again, all of their apps, all of their data, from wherever they happen to be. So now let's return to virtual insurance. And this is the fun part, because we get to go to the part of the end user, someone who actually works there and is experiencing this new form of end-user computing. So at this point, I'd like to welcome to stage Vittorio, who's not a professional actor. He's actually runs product management in our end-user computing space. But he's going to be playing a claims adjuster today. Vittorio.
How exciting. My first day on the job. So at orientation, they told me that I can sit down on any of these cubes and I can get my work done. So let's get started. Let me log in. By the way, what is this? It's like some sort of mainframe? There's no computer here. I wonder if they gave me some old piece of machinery here. What is it? Connecting to the desktop. Oh, that's Windows 7. I know my way around Windows 7. I should be just fine. So I guess this is one of those desktop everybody gets the same. Hold on. What is in my application here? Oh, Salesforce.com, Office. So these are all the applications I need to get my work done. That's great. At orientation, they also told me that virtual insurance, we use this application called Socialcast to collaborate with our colleagues. I wonder what that is. Let's try this application catalog. Oh, Box.net, Google. So I guess this is like an enterprise application store that spans across SaaS application. I see some desktop applications here, and there's Socialcast right there. Let's activate it. Installing Socialcast. Very good. I got a new application. You've been entitled to a new application. Let's see. Oh, there is Socialcast. So I guess I can customize this desktop. It's not just a reusable one. What's in my docs here? Oh, they set up some folders for me with some of the data that I guess I need. Crash reports. Oh, I see. These are the forms that I need when I'm in the field adjusting claims and crashes and things like that. That's great. So I guess I just have to hit the road now and get to work. Although, hold on a second though. How do I access my applications, the data, and email, and so on and so forth from the road? I think they said that I can just activate my phone somewhere here. Let's see under account there. Let's scroll down there. Vittorio Rengo, that's me. Mobile Android, that's exactly what I have, a brand new Samsung Android phone. Let me select that and activate device. Yeah, I'm very sure I want to activate that. Oops. What's that? An SMS from Virtual Insurance. Let me click on it. It's installing a new application. What are they doing to my phone? I just configure it with all my personal applications, and I have, I guess, they just deliver a new, completely new phone on top of my personal data. Wow, how did they do that? What happened to my phone? And I see I have Socialcast here and my applications. Very interesting. Let me go back. What's in my docs here? Octopus. And there's are my directories again. And those are the forms. So I guess IT set it up so that both the applications and the data I need is following me on all my devices. That's great. But hold on a second. What did they do to my phone? What happened to my family? Or as a real Italian American would say, what happened to the family? Let me click on this home here. Oh, there are my Angry Birds again. So all my applications that I installed previously on my personal phone are still there. And then if I click on my virtual phone here, wow, I get it. So I have two phones now, my work phone, my personal phone running on this device all at the same time without stepping on each other. That's really, really sweet. Okay, I don't have any excuses anymore. I really need to hit the road and get some work done.
Thanks, Vittorio. It took a lot of work to get him to come out of his shell and come up on stage, so we're happy he did that. So what that was a quick look at the user side of how things are working. And let me just take you through what you actually saw there in action. First, you saw him working with View 5. And View, again, is about giving you access to your desktop. What he's able to do is go to any of the cubicles in the company and go into any of these thin terminals and instantly get his desktop pulled up in that Windows 7 case that he had there. And what's more is that we're able to make it so that you can customize it quite well. We've introduced a number of capabilities, including something called virtual profiles, which will help you really extract those things that are personal to you. And then when combining it with this App Store concept, you can really make sure the desktop's exactly what you need to get the job done. We also saw Horizon, and this is where he logged in and was able to go and take a look at the applications that were all available there. You might have seen this long list of applications where he chose Socialcast, and it immediately showed up onto his desktop. And then we saw Horizon Mobile. Horizon Mobile is the new name for something you might have seen before called MVP. And this is an incredibly exciting product for us. It really follows the notion of bring your own device. So he was able to go out and buy, in this case, his Samsung Android device, bring it to work, and over the air, Virtual Insurance pushed a work phone onto that device. So two personas, his work life and his home life, completely separated and on the device that he wanted to buy. Now, we've actually announced a number of very exciting partnerships in this space, both with LG and Samsung on the handset side. And I assure you, starting tomorrow, you're going to hear a number of exciting announcements in other areas of this product. And I invite you to stay tuned for that. Very exciting work that's going on here. Then we saw the user view of Project Octopus, and this was very important. You saw that he went into My Documents, and in this case, he showed up and there were a number of files that were already synchronized out for him. These were shared files that came down from the IT staff. But what's also cool is that you also saw on his phone, same thing, My Files, exact same documents that were pushed down there. And as many of you know, in this file sync and share space, if he would have edited any of those files, all the changes would have automatically showed up on all the other devices. I'm getting started using this right now. I can tell you it's a very cool way and a very good way to get more productive. So we showed you very briefly what happened on Vittorio's first day at work, but we didn't hire him as a claim adjuster to just sit in the office. And so many of us are actually much more mobile users now that I thought it'd be good to bring him back up and show you a scenario where he's out in the field using these same products. Vittorio?
Hey, Mario. Hey, ciao. This is Vittorio. You will not believe what happened to me. So get this. My first day on the new job, and the first crash that I'm working on is you ready for this? Is an old Fiat crashing into a Ferrari. Yeah, I know. I felt bad too for the Ferrari dude, but you know what? Don't feel bad about it. It's not a real Ferrari. It's yellow. Yeah, by the way, you know what Fiat stands for in the US? Fix it again, Tony. Yeah. Anyway, I gotta go. I gotta get some work done. Okay, bye. Okay, so I put the picture on Socialcast. I cannot wait to see what my colleagues are saying about this. Let me log in into Socialcast. Yeah, there's discussion going already on that. Yeah, I know. The side mirror of the Ferrari is worth twice the value of that Fiat. Yeah. And let me see. Let me refresh this thing. Oh, what is this? So we use a different settling form for luxury car? Where do I get that? Oh, somebody shared it with me. Let me view it. Oh, look at that. So these are the same files that I had on my Android and on my desk, and somebody just dropped the new form right here. And is that Excel file? How do I edit an Excel file? I don't have my laptop with me. I don't want to go home or in the office to edit that file. I was really planning on getting my work done here by having coffee at the coffee shop. Let me see. Oh, edit with AppBlast? What is that? Whoa! What is this? This is the Windows version of Excel running on my iPad, and I didn't have to install any application. And they told me that the IT org in this company was walking on water, but they're really more than that. It's magic. Okay, let me enter the data right here, save it. It's phenomenal. Now, this is my first claim that I do, so I better call the call center and make sure that I do this right.
Thank you for calling. This is Betty. How may I help you?
Hi, Betty. This is Vittorio Virengo. Can you please pull the latest quote from my file, the Ferrari one?
Yes, Vittorio. Let me look that up. Okay, I've got it right here in front of me.
Oh, perfect. Can you please check to see if parts and prices match? You know, this is my first claim, and it is a Ferrari, so I don't really want to mess it up.
Totally understand. Let me look that up right now. Okay, I've got the car here in front of me. I'm just checking for the part. Okay. Got it. Now let me just check the prices again. Yes, everything looks fine. Expensive, fine.
I know, what do you expect? It's the best car in the whole world. Well, thank you, Betty. You have a nice day now.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Wow, that was a productive first day on the job. I better go home now to my Angry Birds.
Thanks, Vittorio. So that's a great view at how his 1 hour on the job went in the coffee shop. And I think it's a great idea of how we see mobile users interacting with IT as we head forward. So why don't we recap what we just looked at here as well. So we saw Project Octopus again, and this was particularly neat. He was on his iPad, and all those same files came down to it. And then while he was on Socialcast, someone automatically pushed by sharing a new file with him. This is how he could file the claims for the expensive car. We also saw Project App Blast, and this is incredibly cool if you haven't seen this yet. This is a way that we can allow him, in this case he was running Excel, it was actually running in a Windows desktop, but it delivered to his browser running on the iPad with no plugins or any other applications installed there. App Blast is about delivering using HTML5 primitives an application, and it delivers it directly over the internet in a way that you can consume it quite interactively and quite nicely. Now this could be any application. It obviously could come from Windows as we showed here, but you could just as easily deliver these from a Mac or Linux or other places. But the key point is that you can deliver them to any device that supports HTML5. So we think this is going to be just a killer way of delivering applications. I encourage you to take a peek at it and look forward to seeing what we do with this in the future. Now after that, we showed Vittorio calling into a call center. And this is really one of the key use cases for Vue. And what we're trying to show off here is really the big focus that we have in Vue 5, which is on the end user experience. Now, a few things that we showed here. First of all, he was using unified communications to do this video conference. But what we also saw was the arrow display, if you saw that in Windows 7. And we also saw as he was interacting with the Ferrari, the red Ferrari in that case, he was using 3D graphics quite interactively. And this is really what we've been focused on, is a great user experience even when delivered over the WAN. And by many measures, we're doing 75% less bandwidth when we use this new product in Vue 5. So I encourage you to check that one out as well. Now, those of you that might have been watching also noticed that Vittorio left his phone here at the cafe. And this also lets me show off a little bit about what's interesting with Horizon Mobile. As an IT administrative staff, it worries me that my data is out there in the wild. So with Horizon Mobile, I can actually automatically wipe the work phone from that device. So I'm just able to wipe it off there. I didn't touch his personal pictures or anything else going on that device. So we're quite excited about how that's going to let people, again, use these devices in a new way. And then lastly, you saw a quick example of how people are using Socialcast today. And this whole notion about connecting is not just about a person connecting with a device, but it's really about all of us connecting with our own colleagues. And that's really why VMware bought Socialcast. It's representative of the way that applications are moving to be more collaborative, be friendly on mobile devices, and really help people work together. And when better connected to one another, that's really when we all work better. So I took you through in a rather short amount of time the overall vision for how we're going to deliver the connected IT enterprise. And I showed you the IT side first of all, where I want to make the administrative side of the business work very quickly. And then we showed you the user side, which was allowing people to use all their devices to get all of their apps and all their data. And right in the middle of it all was Horizon. And you noticed, again, we were really focusing on policies that attach to people rather than to devices. So that's a quick look at what we're doing. We want to simplify, manage, and connect people to get them to this new world of end-user computing. But none of this is possible without a robust infrastructure building all beneath it. And in many ways, the easier we make these experiences on mobile devices, the more we rely on the data center. And that's the next topic for this afternoon, morning my time. What we are focused on, though, is that you still have a great user experience when you're doing this. And I just wanted to make sure that you don't think all the end-user people get all the fun. We want to deliver it to IT as well. So we actually have a new product that we just launched today, which is an iPad client for administrating your data center. And I wanted to give it a quick plug here so you could bring up the interface. This is the new version that's available in the iTunes store right now, and it does a lot of things the earlier version did. It's been downloaded by thousands of people. But my favorite part now is that we allow vMotion to occur straight from the iPad. So you put your app up there. I think you go over here and select the host. And I think this is the perfect user interface for a vMotion. You can actually go up now, slide it. There you go. Sound effect is included on that app, so you're going to love it. My prediction for today is that when you have an iPad app, you're going to do more vMotions than you've ever done before. So look forward to that. Now we're going to dive really into that core data center and how we run it, though. And a robust infrastructure for all these apps we're talking about starts with vSphere 5, which is now available. A very impressive release and a big labor of love for all of our engineering department. We had more than 1 million engineering hours, 2 million quality assurance hours, And we've delivered more than 200 new features, as well as integrations with a huge set of partners that you can see here in the Solutions Pavilion. And again, I'd like to go back to that original quotation we started with, that it should just work, and it should just work well. I can't get over the number of companies that are instantly upgrading and putting all their applications right on this, and they're having great results. Now, this continues a tradition for us of delivering a lot of innovation into the data center, and most of this has not yet been replicated by any competitors. But we're raising the bar quite another step here with vSphere 5, driving the industry forward with a number of additional firsts. And I want to show you a handful of these firsts that we're delivering. But what I also like is that we really want to make this innovation accessible. That means it should be easy to adopt and easy to use, whether you're a large company or a small company. So we spent a lot of time in particular looking at small and medium-sized businesses, which often have very enterprise-class needs, but they don't have an enterprise-class or sized IT department or budget for that matter. So let me show you two things here briefly. The first is something that we've launched called VMware Go. Go is a hosted service for a customer who has never seen vSphere at all for the first time. You literally log into a website, and it's instantly going to help you get over to a virtualized world. It'll look at your hardware, tell you what could be easily virtualized, and it'll even install vSphere for you. The second thing that I want to show you is something called the vSphere Storage Appliance, or VSA as we call it. This is also very exciting for us because one of the more challenging areas for a lot of very small companies is getting into shared storage for the first time. It can be complex at times, and it can also be expensive. So we wanted to bring the benefits of shared storage in a very, very easy way for these small companies. So at this point, I want to do a few demos and welcome Bruce out the stage, who's going to take us through Go and through the VSA. Hey, Bruce.
Hi, Steve. So as you said, Steve, VMware Go is geared toward making it very easy for people to get started with virtualization. And what we're going to show today is starting with an existing Windows server and converting it into an ESXi host. So we start off by scanning our network. We put in a range of IP addresses of a dozen machines or so. And VMware Go will reach out to each of those machines and find out what's suitable to work as an ESXi host. In this case, we found 2 machines. Now we'll show the steps to bring it up as an ESXi host. First, we just paste in a machine name, tell it what we want to call it, and kick it off. Go will reach out to that individual machine, make sure everything is ready, and it's going to ask me just one more question. What do I want the password to be of my new ASX server? And that's it. I'm off and running, and in a little bit, I'll have an ESX host where there once was a Windows server.
Yeah, very nice, Bruce. So what's important about this is that it's a hosted service. He's able to log into it right away and get started. And also, because it's a hosted service, we can update it quite regularly. So we actually are happy to announce an extension of something we have called VMware Go Pro, and we're adding into it something called IT Advisor. And the idea here is that, directly for these same users, we can add a new set of IT capabilities. In this case, we can help them understand utilization. We can even advise them on things like backup and security. So I'm quite excited about this as a way to really introduce small and medium businesses into this more advanced IT very easily. So how about at this point, we're going to switch over and talk about VSA, which is a way to deliver shared storage in a very simple and easy to consume fashion.
Sure. We talked about Go being a great way to get people started, and VSA similarly is a great way for small enterprises or groups that don't have traditional shared storage to really be able to get the full benefit of virtualization. As you know, Steve, when we start out with just a group of servers, as we have here, 3 individual servers, and no shared storage, each of these disks is available as storage, but it's not shared between the machines, and because of that, we don't have the ability to do things like vMotion, HA, or DRS. With VSA, however, we install a vSphere storage appliance, which is just a virtual machine on each of these hosts, and the VSA then will make the disk available, the local disk, available to the rest of the cluster as shared storage. Okay, and not only will it make that available as shared storage, but it will also automatically write to a second drive as a mirror. And what this means is that if anything unexpected happens to one of our storage devices, we'll get an automatic failover. The users will see no interruption in their service. So with Go, or with VSA, we get not only advanced virtualization capabilities, but also resilience.
Great, thanks, Bruce. We'll see you again soon. So that was a quick look at both VMware Go and the vSphere storage appliance. One is designed to really help people get started, and the other is to bring shared storage to customers that might not have had it at all, and a good way to introduce them to some of the capabilities that you get with it, including HA, vMotion, et cetera. But it's also about bringing vSphere 5 to very large customers. And I've met some customers with massive amounts of servers that are now fully virtualized. And oftentimes they worry about how do I get the latest version out there, and how do I continue to deploy vSphere to my growing environment. And today you do it through a manual process in general where you're installing one by one. But one other thing that we've introduced here with vSphere 5 is something called auto deploy. And this allows your servers to use something many of you might know called Pixie Boot, and actually go out, find the right image, and also grab some of the configuration information it needs so that you can instantly deploy the latest copies and the latest versions of this software along with the right configuration to all these servers. The ultimate result is easier, faster, and compliant installation and upgrades. So I hope you get to take a look at that as well. Now, I always talk about this when I go into infrastructure groups. We have to always remember that infrastructure is just a means to running applications. And on this front, vSphere 5 has made a number of big advances. We really feel that we're at a point in time now where we're ready to go after 100% virtualization. And we track this very carefully. We do a lot of surveys at events like this and other events to find out what applications people are running in virtualization. And what you can see is just in the last year, we've had a noticeable improvement in the number of people that are running their most critical enterprise applications on top of it. This is things like Oracle and SAP and Exchange. And we're seeing the adoption accelerate as we head forward because people know that they have the performance capabilities while improving availability and security and even the speed of IT. Now, we have this obsession at VMware on really focusing on performance. And actually, I started quite a long time ago there, and I got to do one of my first presentations where I bragged about this cool new virtual machine. 1 vCPU and 2 gigabytes of memory. I was pretty proud about 5,000 IOPS coming out of an individual host as well. But fast forward, and the team has just continued to focus very hard on this. Late in 2005, we were up to 4 vCPUs, which we thought was pretty cool. And just with vSphere 5, we've moved the bar up even higher. We're able to ship 32 vCPUs, a terabyte of memory, and a host. I saw a white paper from Intel and EMC showing a single host delivering 1 million IOPS. And these are just amazing numbers. And a lot of you know we got pretty excited by this monster applications that can run here. And in fact, we've had this little guy showing up. You might have seen him already. This guy is called the Monster VM. He's actually taken off, and he's a guy that you can actually meet and I suppose get your picture with if you're into that. But these virtual machines are large enough for your biggest applications. And what's more, we're spending a focus on even things like low latency applications, making sure that we can really go after the 100%. Now, peak performance is important, but what we really care about is sustained performance, especially when you're running in a shared environment. What we really want you to be able to do is have an application that you want to run, but we also want you to be able to set up the policy that you have for it. And this is really just a contract that says, I want this type of performance when I run this application. I want this level of availability, and this might be an extra high security app, or it might be a low security app. And what I want to do is create this contract, and a truly intelligent virtual infrastructure will be able to decode that contract and have the platform automatically take care of those requirements that you've asked of it. And what's more, we want to make sure that you can do this even when you're moving across clouds. In fact, this is more important than ever. Whether you have 2 data centers of your own, or whether you're using one of your data centers and want to start to use one of the vCloud partner data centers, knowing that you can have this policy, follow the application, allows you to set it and then forget it. You know that that platform is going to do exactly what you've asked of it. So let me go into these policies and show how we're able to do this with a combination of the platform and some of the management tools that are in place. And let's start with performance. Now, performance in public clouds in particular is something that people talk about all the time. It's very easy to get started and see that you have some great performance. But as these servers get more and more loaded, you can sometimes get buyer's remorse in some ways. You aren't getting that peak performance anymore. And this is a huge focus for what we do. Now why is this a problem? If you're in a shared infrastructure, there's a problem that people are calling the noisy neighbor problem. And this means this is one of these virtual machines on a shared infrastructure that's blathering on, and it's using up a bunch of CPU or I/O or memory, and it's affecting other virtual machines. Including in this case, it's affecting a virtual machine which is actually a particularly important one. Maybe this is one of my critical applications. So the core thing that we have to focus on is how do we isolate virtual machines from one another and make sure we can give them exactly the performance that they expect. Now, we've been doing this for the whole time that we've been shipping originally ESX and now vSphere, and we've long focused on the CPU and memory aspect of this. A lot of you have set mins and max and shares. You know how we do DRS. But in vSphere 5, we've taken a very big attack on bringing this into the storage space, which is especially vulnerable and important when you're running these high-end applications. And it's not just about performance that we're attacking here. It's actually about complexity in general and making sure that you can automatically do all the things you want to do with storage. So there are really three big deliverables in vSphere 5 that I want to call out. And the first is around pooling. We allow you to create a logical data store, which consists of several physical arrays. And we can let you bring them into tiers. So you might have on one side all your fiber channel arrays that have disaster recovery fully enabled. Tier 3 might be some NAS arrays that you have in place. But we can create logical tiers that consist of multiple of these devices. Once you have that, it really automates the process of doing placement of virtual machines. And this is something people spend a lot of time on. I have this virtual machine. I hear from the line of business owner that it's particularly important, or that it has high I/O demands, or that it has to have backup and disaster recovery. I know a number of you out there today have this giant Excel spreadsheet that you use to track all your data stores and to choose where to put it. Well, with vSphere 5, we can automate that. And so this is a high-end application. It actually is looking at possible tiers to be placed into, and ultimately chooses and recognizes it's a Tier 1 application. What's more is once I'm in that Tier 1 logical pool of resources, I'm looking at individual arrays and can look at the capacity that each of them have available. So again, rather than going to your spreadsheet and manually choosing where to place it, we'll place it in the place that has the best capacity for satisfying its demands. And last but certainly not least is looking over the course of a long time when you're running these applications, particular arrays within one of these tiers can get busier or lighter. And so just as we've done DRS for the CPU and memory side of things, we're leveraging storage vMotion to automatically move applications without any downtime between different arrays within the pool. So pulling this all together, we're really going to make it simpler to get the most out of your storage and make sure you have the guarantees that things are running at the performance you're expecting them to run at. Now, the storage DRS, though, is about multiple arrays and things that take place over the course of hours. There's also fine-grained performance controls that you care about deeply. So in this case, we have a number of VMs, and I only have one storage array in this case. But the same noisy neighbor problem can happen. So in that case, one virtual machine starts really flooding the storage and using a lot of bandwidth. Well, with vSphere 5, we have something called storage I/O control that allows you to set minimums and maximums and shares to ensure that each of the virtual machine gets the amount of storage bandwidth that you want it to get. What's also neat is that the same problem can occur in the networking side. And in vSphere 5, we've extended these same controls into networking. We're on a VM by VM basis. You let it know which virtual NIC is allowed to have what level of bandwidth, and then we'll use interesting techniques within the platform to ensure that they each get exactly what they're expected to get. So these are great parts of this, and they're about making sure that your highest-end applications get exactly the amount of performance that you're expecting from the infrastructure. So performance is great, but only if the application's actually running. So we actually focus quite a bit on availability as well. And we are clearly at a world where you can provide more availability when running on virtualized hardware than on physical hardware. And you have to take a very comprehensive look at this. We actually keep this chart up in a lot of the engineering offices that looks at all the different parts of your data center that can fail. And then we break failures up into those that are planned, as in I know I need to upgrade something, or I see something that's about to go bad, and also into unplanned. These are things like disasters or a catastrophic failure of a NIC card. And we've long focused on each one of these and providing things like NIC teaming and HA and FT across all of these. And we've actually made advancements on each of them for vSphere 5. But I'm particularly excited about more dramatic improvements we've made in data center failover. So disaster recovery is something that has become very popular to implement in a virtualized environment because it allows you to have a primary site and a secondary site that don't have to exactly match one another. You don't have to have the exact same amount or same type of hardware, and you can actually have consolidation ratios that are different on each side depending on what you're after. So disaster recovery has been very popular, and our early product called Site Recovery Manager has been good at it. But we've really made two big changes in Site Recovery Manager 5 that will extend disaster recovery and allow you to protect even more of your applications at better prices. So two things we did. The first is the addition of something we have called vSphere replication. So today's product relies on array-to-array based replication. So you need to have two matching arrays on each side, and it uses the very high-speed copying between them to ensure that your virtual machines and the data across on the other side. And this is great and very high performance and can help you on your RTOs and RPO. But what you might want to be able to do is actually use the network for this replication, and that's what vSphere replication is all about. This will allow you to extend the copying and thus the disaster recovery to more of your applications. And also it makes sure that you don't have to have the exact array on each side. You could have a mixture of them going on. So now you've got both sides ready and a disaster hits. You're able to fail over to the secondary site. Well, we actually got a lot of comments from people that it's great to fail over, but what about when the problem is fixed? So we actually now added failback. Now this is important for allowing you to recover from a disaster, but more importantly than that, what I've heard from a number of our customers is that knowing that they can very easily and automatically fail over and then fail back will enable them to test this capability a lot more than they might have in the past. And for those of you that have worked in a lot of disaster recovery scenarios, one of the scary things you find is that people don't test it. And you're often put under pressure when the disaster actually happens. So this will help on that front as well. What's also exciting about disaster recovery is that we're seeing this as one of the killer use cases for the public cloud. So we're seeing just now the emergence of a number of vCloud partners who are offering disaster recovery to the cloud. Rather than maintain your own secondary site, you might find it more beneficial to use somebody else's. And I do predict this will be something that's much more popular as we head forward. And the other thing I wanted to call out is I'm finding also that this ability to do data center replication is being used for a lot more than just disaster recovery. Increasingly, I'm seeing it used for disaster avoidance, meaning you know that a power outage or maybe a hurricane is coming your way. And we're also seeing it for doing data center migration, so a very automated way to move when you actually are closing down one data center and opening up another one. So quite excited about this product and the new changes it'll bring in the way you think about data center availability. Now I'm going to switch on to security, and you can't possibly discuss cloud computing without talking about security a lot. This is obviously on people's mind. Another problem, and I actually like this as a comparable one to the noisy neighbor, is the nosy neighbor. And I'd encourage you to try and say those two things quickly as much as you can. Very challenging. And the idea here is that we don't want one virtual machine in any way to be able to see what's going on in another virtual machine on that shared infrastructure. So in this case, we're saying, here's a virtual machine. By the way, try drawing that on a whiteboard. It's very hard. We're seeing one virtual machine that's actually trying to look at another virtual machine. And what we need to do is make sure that the infrastructure can protect one from the other and make sure that this can't happen. We've added a number of capabilities around isolation into vSphere 5, and I want to touch on a few of them. Now, anyone who works in security know that it's really about defense in depth. You can't rely on just one boundary. You have to do it at multiple levels. And we deliver in a product area we have called vShield a number of these different layers. The first one is called vShield Endpoint, and this is about protecting what's inside the virtual machine. I'm quite excited to see several partners that are demonstrating add-ons and the way that they built into vShield to provide things like more efficient virus detection within the virtual machine itself. The second type of protection is really when you have a multi-tier, multi-VM application. And what we want to do here is really apply the lessons of firewalls automatically. I want to protect the ports that are going on between two of these tiers, and I also want to wrap the whole thing and make sure that only that level of access that's supposed to be happening is able to happen. And then lastly, as you create these virtual data centers, there's room for really protecting them just like you protect the edge of a data center today, and that's called vShield Edge. Now, we're doing a lot of work in this space, and we've extended each of these capabilities in vSphere 5 and beyond. One thing I like, for instance, in vShield app, we're now able to deliver DLP capabilities. We can make sure that data leakage and know what type of data is in each place, and we can in turn allow you to quarantine and move the virtual machines based on what they happen to be accessing. Another thing that I really like is around vShield Edge, and these are through our own deliverables as well as partners. We're really seeing this as a great place to put general purpose edge functionality. So things like load balancing, VPN termination, and even this being the real point at which you can connect a public cloud with a private cloud, really having a virtual data center that extends across both of them. So stay tuned for a lot more in this space, but security is really a big focus for what we're doing with vShield. Now, I just took you very quickly through how we're able to take guarantees and the contract that an application expects and show how you can guarantee performance, availability, and security. We're really seeing a point in time now where security and availability are even better in this space. And one of my favorite things I saw on the floor in Las Vegas was actually Diebold, who ships ATM machines. This ATM machine is now running vSphere, and it's doing so because they can get better levels of protection, availability, and of course make it even easier to upgrade and provision. So I think if that's not a great use case for when people care about availability and security, you won't find one. So at this point, I'd like to switch on to the final section around what we're focusing on. And a great platform isn't worth a lot if you can't manage it or if it takes a lot of manual interactions. And so what is management ultimately about? You hear that word a lot. Well, one, it's about the lowest overall operational cost. I want to be able to automate everything in sight. And in fact, what I'd really rather do is remove steps when I don't even need them. You just saw how we do this in things like placement of virtual machines to arrays that have the right amount of capacity. Management is also about giving guarantees, so ensuring that people can see and even audit what's happened with their infrastructure. And then last but certainly not least, management tools and the way you automate is really about the agility of an IT department. How quickly can you respond to demands from your lines of business and provide them what they need? So what I've just shown in the previous section is an important aspect of management where we have policy that goes along with an application, and embedded in the infrastructure is the ability to decode what performance means and what availability means and security means. But there's an opportunity and in fact a requirement to do a lot more in the management space as well. So why is this new approach needed? Well, candidly, we've actually caused a lot of problems for management tools over the last several years. It used to be a nice, clean world where I had my entire data center that I owned, and I had one application matched to one server. But virtualization came along and really severed the tie that exists between these two. So we're able to already have separated the application from the infrastructure. And I can't tell you, starting 6 or 7 years ago, how many tools and processes broke just from that. Not only from knowing that they're not tied, but even when they begin to get consolidated. In fact, this core notion of an application tied to infrastructure has been built into a lot of the original ITIL processes and things that have really kept us from moving as quickly as we need to in this new world. But the second thing we've done is actually moved into a world where you have all of your pooled infrastructure, and we've just shown you even more of that. We're now in a more dynamic world where applications are actually changing the mappings between where they run and how they're being run more quickly than ever before. And on top of that, the users themselves are being more dynamic than ever. There's so many more virtual machines out there. And with cloud computing, we're enabling people to self-serve, to really help themselves to these virtual machines as quickly as possible. So we need management tools that can keep up with massive amounts of change and make sense of it and provide you the right information. And then just when we thought that was going to get a little bit safer, the world comes forward where you actually have more choice than ever before. Most CIOs are not only looking at their own infrastructure now, but they actually see that I could actually use a public cloud for some of my applications. Or on the other side, we're actually seeing software as a service as a great option for many companies. They could actually choose whether to build an app themselves and deploy it locally, or to grab one from outside of their own infrastructure. And this choice is actually liberating, but it's also a real challenge. How can a CIO know which one to move towards? So for all these reasons and several others, we see it's time for a new approach to management. And I'm extremely excited here to announce one of the biggest management launches for VMware. And we held that up for VMworld Europe. And I should say overall at the company, the majority of our engineers are actually working on automation and management tools at this point. And what is the core piece of our approach here? Well, first of all, we do believe that the platform should shoulder more of the burden for making sure that you can automate things and enforce guarantees. This is exactly what I just showed you in the previous section, where a smart infrastructure knows about availability, performance, and security and can make sure that it is satisfied. But there's two other things that we really think are interesting and ways to make management step up a notch. And the first is really trying to converge what today are silos. You'll see this in a lot of cases where different teams are supposed to work with each other, but they have different tools, different processes, and when it comes time to communicate, they're throwing tickets back and forth in a way that's not particularly productive. And then lastly is really about dealing with the data deluge that we talked about a moment ago. We have these large, fast-moving infrastructures, and we need to be able to filter all that data and provide just the right amount of information depending on who's looking at it. So let's take a look into this in more detail and show what we're delivering. I'm going to take you through 3 different aspects of management that we're delivering, and the first one is around infrastructure. Now, if you look at the infrastructure management in a lot of companies, they typically have at least 2 teams. We have an infrastructure team and an operations team. And they have different concerns. In fact, in many cases, they're goaled differently. An infrastructure person often worries about physical entities. I need to go buy servers and storage and network. But an operations team is worried about how do I keep these things running and how do I satisfy all the demands coming in for infrastructure from my clients. Things like end users and tickets and SLAs. And there's almost a wall that forms between these 2 teams, and many of you might have seen it in your own companies. You actually can track tickets all the time where someone's worried about something in operations, they send it over the fence to the infrastructure team who might solve the problem by just throwing more hardware at it. So we want to find a way to converge these even more. And that's really what we're focused on. And the first management suite that I'd like to talk about here is called vCenter Operations Management 5.0. Now this is building upon VC Ops, which we launched in April of this year and which has gotten quite a nice reception so far. but we're really adding in a number of capabilities from other tools that we've previously been shipping independently. Capacity IQ, Configuration Manager. And also it adds a killer new capability to really understand more about the applications running on top of your infrastructure. And this is through something called Infrastructure Navigator. So what we're going to do now is take a look back with Bruce here at vCenter Operations Management Suite 5.0.
Okay, we're going to talk about how the components of vCenter Operation Management Suite work together to present the right information at the right time. We're going to start off with VC Operations. VC Operations combines information from a variety of sources, many thousands of different data points, into 3 very concise metrics. Here on the left, we see health. Looks a little bit like a garden salad. Health tells us how things are running in our environment right now. On the right is efficiency, and that tells us how effectively we're making use of the resources we have in our environment. And in the middle is risk. That's maybe the most interesting one because it tells you not only what parts of your infrastructure have the potential to run into problems, but also when those problems are likely to occur. In fact, let's go out to the Planning tab here, get a better look at that upcoming information. Here we see a global view of our world from the highest level down to clusters, hosts, and VMs. And for any of these, we can click on them and get more information about what's likely to happen to them in the near future. In this case, the information is coming from Capacity IQ, and we see that for this particular SharePoint VM, looks like we've got about 8 days or so until we're likely to run into a problem. So that's something we obviously want to go out and fix, and an obvious way to do that would be to roll back the changes or whatever's causing the problem. So let's find out what changes there might be. We'll start by figuring out whether it's specific to this particular VM or whether there's just too many VMs on the host. In this case, our heat map shows us that it's only this one VM that's yellow. So we're going to drill down into that and look at the recent history and see what may have happened. And in fact, we see there's a large number of changes that recently took place. So again, we could roll those things back and probably resolve our problem. But it would be good to have a little bit more information before we make a move like that. So we can make use of our new Navigator technology. Navigator has the ability to understand the applications and services that are running inside a virtual machine without making any changes to the virtual machine, to the operating system, or to the application. So it's agentless and automatic. We can use that to filter and just look for the IIS server under our SharePoint server, and there's the one we want. And the second thing that Navigator lets us understand is the relationships between the VMs. So here we see our particular VM we've been looking at. In addition to that, we have a SQL Server database, and we have a second SharePoint VM. So if we need to make changes to our first VM, we probably need to make the same changes to this SharePoint. Okay? So we've gathered enough information to feel pretty confident about this. Let's go find out what those changes were all about. So we go out to vCenter Configuration Manager, VCM, which is also part of the suite, and we see what those changes are. From here, it becomes very easy just to right-click, click roll back the changes, and we can resolve the problem.
All right, thanks, Bruce. So that's a very quick look at vCenter Operations Management Suite. Thank you, and it really encapsulates a lot of things I just talked about. It's really trying to give a converged view from both the infrastructure and the operations team on those key things they care about. In fact, it kind of brings them together in a nice way. So they can talk in a common language and with common views of performance, capacity, and configuration. And I think what's also very interesting about this, it really encapsulates and shows you what filtering means. The very first screen that we logged into had a very nice dashboard view, and we're able to deeply drill down into where the actual problem is, but it doesn't compromise the ability to troubleshoot and really understand where that core issue is. So we're extremely excited about how we're going to change the way that you manage infrastructure with this tool, and really see this as a new field, something we're calling Cloud Ops, which is around this very efficient, converged way of managing. Now, the next area, that's supposed to be a developer if you can't tell. So the next area that we're really focused on is applications, and also trying to bring together application developers with those that have to put them into production. And this is also a case where people have different concerns. So a developer typically is worried about these development cycles. I got to get the latest feature out. Deployment challenges. Where's the infrastructure so I can actually build this in the first place, and how do I stage it and get it out there? And of course, bugs, not only things that are around correctness, but also performance. How is it running when it's actually deployed? And operations teams typically care quite a bit about the end user experience. They get troubleshooting requests all the time. This app is slow is the most common one. And they're worried about change control and making sure that they can be accountable for how this works. So what we're trying to do here is really focus on this emerging field that's called DevOps, which really tries to bring these two teams together in a better way and get over the same brick wall that exists between the two of them. So today, also in Copenhagen, I'm very excited to announce for the first time the vFabric Application Management Suite. And this is the first time that we're really going into the application management space in a way that will converge teams, give you the right information, and make sure that you can efficiently monitor and deploy applications. So now we're going to switch back to Bruce, who's going to take us through an example here. And this is something some of you might not deal with quite as much, but this is a typical way that you construct a 3-tier application. And we're going to start with that application and show how you can create a deployment and a monitoring solution for it.
That's right. We're going to see how vFabric Application Management Suite can simplify and automate the process of managing application lifecycles. And as you started to say there, Steve, we're actually going to build a deployment blueprint that lets us describe how to deploy the application, and that's built from 3 types of components. The first is application components, things like jar files, war files, and scripts. The second is services, things like application servers, web servers, database servers. And then the last piece is the logical templates, which are the actual VMs that the application will run on. So we can drag and drop these things and connect them. And that's how we build our configuration here. Then we save that blueprint, and we're ready to deploy it. So we go over here to deployment. First thing we'll do is give this deployment a profile name. Okay. And then we can walk through a very simple 4-step wizard for deploying it. First thing we do is choose the cloud environment to which we want to deploy. That could be a private cloud, a public cloud, be production, dev, test, whatever you want it to be. Our second step is to configure properties for the deployment, things that are specific to the deployment, like port numbers, environment variables, that sort of thing. Third step is the execution plan. The execution plan lets us build a sequence of events. So if you've got a dependency, like for example, your application server needs for your database server to be fully up and running before it starts, the execution plan is where you build that up. And the fourth step then is to review, make sure you've got everything that you want, and at that point, you're ready to go ahead and deploy.
Great, so what you just saw is the creation of a recipe or a blueprint for applications, and then allowing you to keep that in a cloud-independent way. And then when you do want to instantiate it, Bruce showed how you can set the parameters and make sure that it goes out there. Now, the other part of closing this gap and really managing applications is on the performance side and monitoring them. So why don't we switch over to the other component of the suite and show what that means in the cloud world.
All right, so now that our application is out here running in the cloud, we can look at vFabric App Insight that gives us visibility into the application and how it's performing. In this case, we see a big red circle. That tells us there's probably something wrong with the application. And by mousing over it, we see that our tiers health is red. So that means that one of the tiers in our application is having a problem. We drill down, we see our database is fine. Our web tier is yellow, but our app tier is red. So we can look at the topology and actually go and drill down into that application. And we get some interesting information here. We see that our error percent is 100. That means every transaction is an error. So these things aren't CPU, disk, memory, and those kind of metrics. These are application metrics or transactions as experienced by the end users. Our throughput is 0. This means our application is down, even though our infrastructure perfectly fine. So again, this is a case of pulling in a tremendous amount of information, filtering it down to a very obvious indication of a problem.
Great. Thanks very much, Bruce. So again, what you just saw is really an emerging suite coming from VMware that is focused on how to make applications ready for the cloud. And it's an emerging field called DevOps. And again, the goal is to bring developers and the operations team even closer in the way that they're talking and the way they're handling troubleshooting and making sure they can be as efficient as possible. Now, this is something that's a bit higher in the stack than the core vSphere. And as you saw, we're able to create applications in a cloud-agnostic way. So this is actually something that's allowing you to choose where you deploy to a cloud, and that might be for vSphere clouds or non-vSphere clouds as well. And it's also optimized for vFabric applications, those built on Spring and some of the other tools that you're used to. But it is very much extensible, and we'll be using other frameworks as well. So you can use it for a variety of apps and target a variety of different clouds. So thanks very much for showing us that. Now, the last area I want to talk about a little bit is the CIO. That's a tie that he's wearing, if you can't tell. So we have, first of all, we had our infrastructure and ops team, and then we had our application and ops team. But a real challenge facing CIOs today is how do I deal with all this complexity and how do I make the right choice? And what's really happening today is that a CIO has all these different pressures that are coming down upon him. There's risk in being able to comply with all the regulations that are coming up. It's certainly around speed, and every single line of business using those services wants to be able to move quicker than they can so far. And every single CIO in the world is being pressured to save money. So there's all these different pressures coming on board, but there are also a lot of choices, and more choices than ever before. Should I run this in my own data center? Should I use a public cloud? Should I actually go with software as a service for this particular application? So the final big announcement I'd like to make is around how we can help CIOs choose and measure different approaches to satisfying the needs of their business. So today we're launching also something called the VMware IT Business Management Suite. This is the newest suite from us, and it's also in a very new area that we're seeing quite a bit of traction for. It's aimed at CIOs and line of business owners, and it's really about visibility and control into all the risk and all of the cost that's facing them. So let's cut back over here and do a quick look at this new offering as well.
All right, you're right, Steve. We're going to do a very quick look at this, but this is the ultimate example of taking a huge amount of information and really filtering it out to get right down to what we need. I'm just going to look at a couple of quick parts of this. The first is SLA performance. Up here in the upper right, you see that we have a very simple representation of how our IT organization is doing with their SLAs, or service level agreements, against each of the lines of businesses that we're servicing. On the other side of that coin, our second example is the spend. So we saw the service that we're providing. We also see what we're spending to get that service. So we get a roll up here of our year-to-date IT spend by service, by infrastructure. All this information comes, as we said, from thousands of data points, but the goal here is to provide senior management the information that they need to run the business.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. So what you just saw here is yet another example of how we're approaching the management problem, trying to converge a lot of information from different places, but most importantly, filter it up to the right level. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is give the CIO a very top-level view into a lot of the things they care about, certainly around the financial side, but how we're meeting service levels. And overall, how are the different vendors doing as they're trying to satisfy the needs. So this is a single view into IT, CapEx, OpEx, and other metrics and reports that they need on a daily basis. So this is a very quick look at our overall management launch, and I'm very excited to do that today here in Copenhagen. This is one of the biggest management launches we've ever done. And it's really something, again, that we want to focus on all the areas you need to be ready for the cloud. First, we showed you cloud ops and how we're converging the fields of infrastructure and operations to make sure you can handle performance, capacity, and configuration changes. And then we went over to DevOps, really talking about how you can provision and monitor applications in this new cloud world that we're clearly headed towards. And then last but not least was IT business management. And this was really around letting a CIO have a chance to understand costs and risk in a world where there's a lot more choices than before. And ultimately what we're trying to do is pull all these teams together. Thought that'd be a fun animal. Probably not solving world peace, but I think we're at least taking you a step further towards IT as a service. And I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of all the engineering team that's been working to pull this together. And I also would like to invite everyone here. We had a super session on our new management tools this morning, which had standing room only. So we're going to do it one more time on Thursday at 11 o'clock, and I invite you to come learn a lot more than I was able to show in a short amount of time. So I've shown a lot today, and I opened up the overall session with saying one of our engineers' quotations, it should work, and it should just work well. And this is really something that is happening in all these products. Almost everything I showed you here is shipping today or is in use, and much of it is in use in our hands-on lab. And I do have to say again, this is one of my favorite aspects of VMworld, is seeing people dive right in. And again, 14,000 VMs just yesterday before we even started. And I'm sure we're going to surpass the 50,000 VM mark before we're done here. But what I also like about the labs is it's about all of you that are going out and really trying to understand these tools and tools from partners and understanding how to deliver this opportunity that we're provided with the cloud. And what I also like is I've heard people talking about going to learn about the products, but just importantly is learning from one another. So it's about the services in the cloud, but it's also about the people. And I thought that's a really good way to return to the way we opened the keynote. We are clearly in one of the biggest transitions happening, and it's a privilege to be part of it. And these changes are really focusing us to think about services and people rather than individual servers and desktops. But really, the ultimate goal here is about everyone in the room. And I think by being here, you're a leg up on everyone else in understanding how we're going to get there. And that ultimately is what the whole theme of this conference is about, which was your cloud, own it. So thanks, and I hope you have a great VMworld.